Welcome to Marketing, Media, and Money, your go-to podcast for proven profitable strategies, secrets, and resources from industry experts and global influencers to help you scale your business, shorten your learning curve, and stand out in a crowded, noisy marketplace. Here's your host, award-winning marketing and media strategist and international speaker, Patty Farmer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. Now, I'm really excited about this episode because our guest today is someone who pretty much is near and dear to me. We met 3 years ago at an event that was online. We became accountability partners. Then we became event roomies. Then we became not just accountability partners, but collaborative partners on all those things, and really learned how to hold our feet to the fire. I could share some stories with you of the times we have spent holed up with lists of things we were going to do and our weekly meetings where we put it all together to make sure that we're doing it, and then how we brainstorm to how we're going to get it all done. So she has become a very, very dear friend, and today I get to share her with you, and I'm super excited about that. But let me tell you what we're going to talk about. Because today we're going to talk about recognizing not just who you are, but who you are not, and what role that plays in building relationships, communities, and your bank account. So Tonya is not just a high-performance coach and business strategist, but a multifaceted consultant, trainer, podcast host, and a columnist for Marketing, Media, and Money magazine, transitioning from a 34-year career in executive banking. During her banking tenure, she played a pivotal role in escalating her company's assets from millions to billions. Her innate flair for growth and strategy didn't just stop there. It was the catalyst for her next endeavor in becoming an entrepreneur. Now, let me tell you that didn't stop her, and what she does today is phenomenal. Her business perception is deeply rooted in the power of referrals, relationships, collaborative partnerships, and affiliate marketing. And her unique approach emphasizes a deep self-understanding, recognizing not just who you are, but crucially who you are not. And this philosophy is vital for building self-confidence and self-worth, key to developing a distinctive personal and digital identity that strategically boosts revenue. So I got to tell you, we're going to dive into a whole lot. So let's just get started. So Tonya, thanks for coming on with me today.
Thanks for having me, Patty. It's so good to be here.
I know, I'm really, really excited. So let's kind of start with not really so much your story, but we just got done hearing about how for 34 years you were in banking. Now that's pretty impressive, right? And millions to billions. I mean, that's pretty impressive as well, too. But what was the catalyst, the aha moment that you just said, you know what, I'm doing it for everybody else? And how did that make you make the decision to decide to become an entrepreneur?
So, Patty, the short story of that is the culture was changing where I was. And I decided that was not the culture that I wanted to be in anymore. So I made a decision to leave. And I was actually going to go to another financial institution. And during that waiting period, I decided that I was going to go and do what I love doing, which is helping other people. And so I was going to go assist another financial institution with an acquisition and a conversion. And while doing that, I had an aha moment of, wow, it feels good to be your own boss. Make your own decisions, create your own hours, and all of the things of an entrepreneur. And I really enjoy assisting other people in my own way. And so when I had that aha moment of what an entrepreneur was, that's when I made that decision. It only took me a week to make that decision. And I called the other financial institution and said, we need to go to lunch. And I told them, I'm going to become a consultant. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to take a leap of faith and become an entrepreneur.
Now that's pretty fabulous because I have seen over the past 3 years, a lot of what you have achieved, right? And I think that the one thing, like the one common vein through all of those things, even when you were in banking and now as an entrepreneur and, your whole list of things and how you serve and support others, really comes down to that you are a master at knowing how to build relationships, right? And that is key. It doesn't matter what you do. If you know how to do that one skill, and I think that for some, it is a skill and it is something that they can learn. But I think for others like you and I, it's just innately a part of who we are. And it's just something we just automatically do. Now, have we learned to do it more intentionally? For sure, right? You hone your skills, right? But I think that it is just something that is just crucial to us. So what would you say about how critical do you think that referrals and relationships are in today's business environment, and specifically the digital environment that we're in?
Patty, I think it's extremely critical. And if I could share just a short story to tell you just how critical I believe it is. I just mentioned that I decided to become a consultant. And while I was a consultant, I decided or realized I put myself in my same corporate job that I had previously and realized that too was not really what I wanted. I wanted to become a coach, a trainer, and serve people differently. And while I was that consultant, what I realized I was doing, and I was doing really well, but I had not added that into my contract and was not charging for, was referrals and connecting people through my network and the relationships that I had built. So what the point I want to make here is I was in that role, I was connecting prior vendors to the businesses that I was working for, and I was connecting people who wanted to change jobs to new jobs to help them get interviews. And that even was escalated even greater than that. And I won't go into that full story because we could spend a while. And people would ask me, what do you charge to help people do that? Because it would go on from that relationship into helping them review and contracts and so on and so forth. And I said, that's what friends do. You help people get referrals, you build relationships, and you help them build relationships. And for a full 12 months, Patty, I was doing that. And the question continued to come up. What do you charge for that? What do you charge for that? What do you charge for that? And I had this epiphany of just how critical and important referrals are. And I thought to myself, I need to get out of this consulting role and go into a coaching role, because this is so much bigger that you literally need to teach people how to build relationships, connections, and so on and so forth. So to answer your question, people rely on growing their business on referrals. My entire business was built on referrals and building a network of relationships. And we can talk more about that as we go through the conversation today. But even in the digital landscape, if you don't know how to build a relationship with somebody, really, in the digital world today, you're going to struggle. You have to know how to open up a conversation, even in the virtual world like we are right now, but even in the social media world, whether it doesn't matter what platform you're on, you have to know how to start, engage, and end a conversation to be able to bring someone into your own business to help them engage if I were going to bring someone to you, I have to know how to do that. And that's all about building a relationship to start the referral process.
I have to tell you that we could just literally have the whole podcast on that one thing. Right? I mean, we really could, but there's 3 key points that I want to say here. The first is I remember distinctly that as you were transitioning out and over to this, I remember one particular time that you told me that you weren't going to be able to make our Monday call. And I was like, why? Like, I'm trying to hold you accountable. And you told me that a company was paying for you to go to this fintech conference and that they wanted you to be there to represent them. Like, you were supposed to go network for them. And I was like, what? Like, there's corporations and companies that had you do it. And I kind of thought it was kind of interesting. And as we kept in touch during the time that you were there, of course, I remember you shared with me that coming out of that you had 19 contracts that you needed to close and you were going to make a commission on those, of course. But what I got out of that was, what if you were doing that for yourself, right? What if those were your contracts, not their contracts, right? What would that look like? So that was like one thing that I think is really important. And then the other thing that you said that I think is really important in there is, I'm sure a lot of people who are listening, this probably happens to them as well. But when you really know how to build relationships that create referrals and you do it intentionally, I always like to say this is where you stop getting compliments and start getting cash, right? You know, that's what I call that, because I think a lot of times what happens is, you know, ask yourself, how many times do you hear, whether it's in an introduction that people do for you by email or social media or in person, where they're telling everybody how brilliant you are, you know, how amazing you are, you need to know her, but they kind of drop the lead, right? You know, and they don't actually tell people why, because they haven't taken the actual time to know how to do that. Because I think knowing how to do a good introduction is literally like the gift that keeps on giving, right? You know, so I think that that is really important. And that's where the intentionality in learning how to do it takes you from just being a good networker to a great networker and to a profitable networker.
Right.
So what are some of the strategies for those that are listening going, oh my gosh, people have introduced me and said that all the time. Oh my goodness, people do tell me how brilliant I am all the time, but they don't hire me, right? You know, so for those that are listening and thinking, wow, that kind of does happen to me, right? You know, what are some strategies that you would say that they could make a shift right now? What are some things that they could do to shift and not just build those relationships, but maintain them? Because we know that's what's important as well.
So, you know, number one strategy is, you know, staying in touch with those individuals, and follow up is critical. You know, there's a statistic out there that it takes anywhere from 5 to 12 times to follow up with someone and engaging with them before they're actually going to engage with you, whether that is on social or in person. But you've got to think about all of the ways, and so let's talk strategy here, in all of the ways that you've got to engage with people in order to stay connected, in order to build that relationship with them. And I have learned sometimes you have to get creative. Okay. So, you know, there's the social media posts, there's the DMs, there's the doing a video. And if you've got their phone numbers are so easy to get today. Send them a video message, send them an email, post on their wall. If their social media is public, go like some of their things. Be in that constant engagement world with them. Act like you like the person, you know. Don't just have one conversation with them and then ghost them. You know, I'll share with you one of the things that in another situation that I did, where I was hired to go to another conference and just scout, Nobody knew I was scouting, but I was looking for 9 companies to partner with another company on. And this was there were booths set up. I just went and talked to multiple people at these booths, acting like I was there for my own business. I asked them what they did, who they were, just a lot about their business. I got their business cards. I came back and engaged with them on LinkedIn. I started conversations with them. They had no idea what my intent was until I was ready for them to know what the intent was. And
you were serving them first, though.
I was serving them.
And serving them, because a lot of times you don't even know. One conversation with somebody that they say something does not tell you exactly where it should be. I don't know how many times I've had conversations with someone, and then weeks later, I'll see something they post on social media and I'm thinking, oh, wow, that's the thing, right? But if you shut it down or you do one conversation and then move on, then you really don't know. I always like to say for myself that I keep on having conversations till I find the way to serve you. Like until I'll have a conversation, and if immediately I don't think of somebody, which doesn't happen very often, but if it does, it's like, oh, well, we didn't get deeper. Like maybe our call was only 30 minutes or 20 minutes, right? And then I want to have another call, and I'm going to continue that conversation until I know how to serve them, whether it's an introduction or a referral, or invite them to a community that I think would help them, or to give them some type of value that I can, or introduce them to somebody else that can. So I feel like knowing how to have good conversation, like you can do it in 10 conversations, or if you're good at it, you can learn how to do it in 1 or 2 if you know how to ask the right questions.
Well, so let me finish this particular strategy here, because what is so awesome about this is just having that little bit of engagement, going out to LinkedIn and doing what I did was when I finally said to them, that I am looking for 9 people to partner with this company. They were like, wow, I love the way you network. Because again, they thought that they were going to do some type of business with me. Now they were, but they weren't, right? And so, Patty, to say all of that, those people, not all of them, because there was 11 people that I really, really engaged with, and we only took 9 of the 11. But here's the thing that I want the audience to get out of this. What I did and the value and the posting that I did for them, those people still engage on my LinkedIn today. It's been 2 years since that transaction took place. I still have a relationship with those people today. And I can promise you that if I were to reach out to one of them and ask them for help with something, they would do it for me. They would do it for me. And so that's how building your relationships and your networks do for you. But it comes with serving them first. And so that's the strategy. That's the main strategy in it all, is give, serve, provide value.
I really believe that. One of the things that I have always done, and it still makes me laugh now because it's a strategy I've been doing for a long time before people really started talking about it, right? But I remember one of the things that I would do is when people would send me a request, right? When they send me a request and we connect. So I always want to provide some type of value, right? And I always want to know, why did they connect? So that's always kind of part of the things, like, why did we connect? From your point of view, I know when I'm very intentional, so I know why I would have, right? But then one of the things that I do in a follow-up with them is basically, kind of like the strategy that we hear of, like, oh, if you like this, then you'd like that, right? So
right.
What I always like to say to them is like, if you wanted to connect with me, and this is the reason why you said that you would like to connect with me, here's 5 other people that I can tell you that if you want to connect with me, you probably want to connect with these 5 people as well. Now, here's the part that's kind of funny. I thought when I got their response back and they would be like, oh, wow, that's really great, Patty. Thank you so much. And then they would connect with those 5 people. I would do intros for them if they wanted to. But you know what? That wasn't the biggest thing that happened from that. That was my goal. But what came from it, which kind of blew my mind and really opened my mind up years ago to the potential, is what they said to me over and over and over again was, Patty, how do I get on that list of the 5 people that you introduce to other people that you say, if you know me, you know, you might want to know them. So it wasn't even that they wanted to be introduced to those 5 people. They did. But those that saw the bigger picture were like, wow, what would we have to do? What type of relationship would we have to build that you would feel comfortable having me on that list? And I literally had a list of like 25. I just picked the 5 that were appropriate for them. And I still do that strategy. But it was kind of funny that from one strategy actually came a better strategy even that came from what the results were that came back to me from people seeing what I was doing. So I feel like that was kind of the eye opener for me years ago that really made me realize that if you are a connector, it is literally better to be able to, when people know you, that you know how to connect, when you become the go-to person, when they say, oh, let me go to this person or let me go to that person, kind of like how you have always been for me whenever I'm looking through things and I'm like, okay, Tonya, here's what I'm thinking about doing. Like, what do you think? Right. You know, and it's because you and I, like you have a lot of systems, you know, because of your background. And so a lot of times what I'm always looking for from you is for you to poke the holes, right? And say, you know, no, Patty, this one isn't because of this, right? Or it isn't because of that, or, oh no, we should do it. And one of the things I've always found is every time it's a should, we both do it. You know, so it's kind of like one of those things. So now let's kind of talk about like online and offline when we're, you know, doing relationship building. Now, I had a friend who said something to me once and I never forgotten it. And what she said to me was, she said that when you are building relationships online and offline, right, that you want to treat them equally, but not identically. And I love that quote, right? Equally, but not identically. Right? You know, so obviously they're equally as important, having online and offline, but you do have to build them a little bit differently, right? So not identically, right? So a little bit differently. So how are you seeing how you're building relationships online and offline? What are you doing different and the same?
So, you know, obviously in today's world, I have many more online virtual meetings and networking meetings online than I do offline, but I do have in-person networking meetings. What I'll tell you, the difference for me, and I feel like, I don't know how other people feel, and it may be because I am such a relationship builder, but I feel like I can build some real authentic social connections virtually. But what I love about in-person is that true social connection in the in-person. Not everybody is a hugger. Not everybody is. But I am a touchy, lovey feeling type person. And what's interesting is I can go from a virtual meeting in my community and see them in person, and I feel like I've known that person for years. And it's like I go straight for the hug because it's like I know them. But even if I don't know them, that connection feels different than that virtual connection because there's something about a bond that you have when you see somebody eye to eye or body to body. There's just, yes, heart to heart. There's just that energy that you have when you have a face-to-face connection. And I know that more and more people are getting back to face-to-face, and I love that. I have to tell you that 2020 did do some work on all of us. I sometimes have to force myself still to get out and about. And I love face-to-face connection, but I have to force myself to get out and not be a hermit because I've gotten comfortable.
I have to work on.
Yeah.
I have to work on that. I have to work on that a lot because we do get used to doing it virtually. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's always the convenience of you don't have to drive anywhere, right? That's kind of nice. But I do believe that the heart-to-heart connection really matters. I know that for myself in the last year, I've got to meet in person 3 distinct people who I feel are super important in my life. Like I love them and the impact they've made in my life and business have been amazing. And I just met them in person like this year, but I've been friends with them online for like years. And what I really love is if you do it right, it's like what you just said, when you meet them in person and you get to hug them and it's just like so validating. And it's just like all the way to your soul when you find out that, oh my gosh, it's exactly the same. That's how it was when we finally met in person, right? When you finally meet and you're like, oh my gosh, it's exactly like the conversations that we've had. And I think a lot of that is opening yourself up and realizing that all those things take time and the conversations, right, that we have. And a lot of times when you meet people in business, like, you're not talking about, the name of your dog and your kids and grandkids and all of those things. But as you build that relationship, and I think especially for women, like we can talk about our business and then our home life and then our business and then travel and then our business. And we can do it all in a loop and we do it really, really well in one conversation, right? We can and we'll follow it and get back to it. And we do it really, really well because those are all the things that make up who we are and what is important to us. So I think that is really important. And it's important in building a community, right? Community is so important. So relationship building, yes. That's really important. But when you can take those relationships and then build community, and you can do that online and offline. So I kind of want to talk about that because I know that for you have mastered both, right? Now for me, like I have built, networking organizations for myself and people have hired me to take their local ones national as well 7 times. And I've been able to do that. But one of the things that I love about you, and it was really kind of funny because when we first became friends, you wanted me to do it too. And I remember you saying, oh, Patty, come join this online community. And I said, no, I don't want to do it. For whatever reason, I just didn't want to do it because at that time, it was online and in person. And I didn't want to do that. I already had it and I didn't want to do something new. But I have watched over the past few years, you flourish in building that community. And not only that, but this year you actually managed to get 2 awards for it. So I can talk about it, but I would really like to let you talk about it. So talk about that community, what has happened for you, and it has blown up for you. And then I really do want to congratulate you publicly for those awards. So I think that is really, it's kind of like really shows that you like walk the walk and not just talk the talk, right? We all have our communities. And so I think that is important, but being able to do them both and then being able to merge them together is really where the sweet spot is. So why don't you tell us about that community, the awards, how you're taking it online and offline, and some of the amazing things that have happened because of it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Yeah. So the online community that you're talking about, and it's still not as wide known as it should be. There's about 10 million people on the platform. It's called Alignable. It's not a social media platform. It's a networking platform. And, I am an ambassador leader on the platform for my community, which is the Little Rock, Arkansas community. And it's actually the surrounding communities. It's Little Rock and surrounding. So I have currently about 7,000 people in my community, which is phenomenal. Not all 7,000 are very active, but there is a group that is very active. There's about 3,000 plus groups on the platform of all types of industries. You name it, it's there. that people can get involved in. And I am a co-leader in two of those, sales strategies, and one that we call deeper networking. I'm much more involved in deeper networking, if you can imagine, than the other one. But we do Smart Connects, which is small group connecting, and then we do masterminds within those. But yes, so we do virtual networking meetings, and we do in-person meetings here in Little Rock. And I'm very excited because this particular month, one of the executives from Alignable is coming to my community and going to serve my community, which is exciting. And to talk about the awards, I did win. I won last year as well, but it means more to me this year because there's been much more work done, if that makes sense. And there were many more people who voted this year because my community is bigger. But I won the Local Business of the Year award, as well as the 2024 Community Supporter Award. And it was such an honor, Patty, to win those because I do put, time, energy into those, trying to build a network. We were doing weekly virtual networking meetings, and a lot of the people said, we want to do in person. And I was like, wow, this is exciting that people do want to get back to face. And so we found a little spot that was basically central to a lot of the surrounding communities. And we picked a certain day of every month. And it's the third Tuesday of every month. And we meet on the third Tuesday of every month. And it's going very well. Obviously, I want it to be much bigger. My goal is 100 people meeting every third Tuesday of every month. And so I'm not going to stop. I'm going to make it happen. I'm not going to stop till I get there.
I really believe that. I believe strongly that we should always lead with contribution, and compensation will follow. It's the thing that I'm known for and quoted for the most. But I think that people don't always understand what that means. And when it comes to communities, I think it's really important because one of the things that I believe is why you have been so successful is that because you and I innately are networkers, the thing is when we are thinking about joining a community, or building a community or being a part of a community, whether it's on Facebook or in person, whatever the case may be, the number one thing I always ask myself is how can I contribute? What are the ways that I can add value and I can contribute? Now, I know that you do that as well because you do it in my community too. But one of the things that I think is interesting, and just to give people like something to compare it to, I know that we all know, we'll just say Facebook. We'll just use Facebook as an example. And Facebook groups, somebody in there will ask a question or they'll need help with something. So they ask in a Facebook community that they're a part of. And then 150 people will pitch them and say, oh, I can help you. And they troll through there and they just wait to ask or answer a question. And they think that's how they're going to build business. Well, you and I both know that that doesn't work, right, at all. And I always think, well, wouldn't it be a better strategy to build a relationship with the person who literally manages, is organizing that community? And I have felt for me that one of my best strategies has always been to build a relationship with that person and then say, I would really love to be able to contribute to your community. How do you see that I can best do that? And then invite them to come into my community as well, right? Because we all network in more than one place. And then what seems to happen is when you build a relationship with that person, you don't have to do that anymore because that's not how you should be doing it, right? But what happens is they tell you all the people that you need to connect with, and they do introductions for you, and they, reward you for adding value to their community. And so I have seen you do this over and over again. And so this is why I believe you're winning all these awards and why you're doing so well in that community, because you always contribute, right? You're always thinking about, oh, what other value can I add? What else can I do? I mean, you and I have had many conversations over this is what I could do, but how else can I do it? What else could I do to add value? And I think that is really important. It's who you are at your core. But then comes to the next step, right? The next step. So now you're building relationships and now you're building communities. And I believe, and you do too, because we talk about it, about the power of collaborative partnerships. Like what comes next, right? Now, so you're starting to build relationships. That's great. You're doing introductions. That's fabulous. And now you're inviting them and you're building communities. But now it's really about collaborative partnerships. That's where you take it up a notch. So can you give us an example of how this has played a significant role in your business strategy?
Yeah. So Patty, there's things where you and I have done things together. One of the things, let me just back up. When you are in a group and you see talent, let's go all the way back 3 years ago when you and I first met. You saw something in me that you were like, wow, I need her in my ecosystem. And the same here with you. And we first became accountability partners. And then we were like, we think we could do some things together, or we think we could add value to each other. To me, the collaborative partnership can be broad. It can be narrow and it can be broad, depending upon how you want to use that. And you and I have, oh my goodness, we have done so much together from, we could spend the whole podcast talking about how you and I work together, but we have, shared resources. We've shared, we shared tools. We've done so many things, worked on projects together. But when you're looking for a collaborative partner, when you spot people in a Facebook group, you're looking for someone who could add talent to your business. And one of the things I really want to focus on, because I think that this is a great example, and this is something that you and I have talked about here just recently. I'm going to go back to my Alignable community for just a minute. In my deeper networking group, we're going to talk about human design for just a second. I'm not going to go into human design, but there was a group of us in everybody was talking about, who they are at their core through their human design. And I'm like the ugly duckling. I have no clue what they're talking about. And they're all kind of guessing what I am. And I'm like, what the heck? I want to know who I am. And so when I get mine, it solidifies a lot for me. And then I'm like, I got to know the person who's behind all of this. And then when I meet that person and I get my hands on that person's customized ChatGPT, I'm like, again, here comes my leading with value. I'm like, I can help this individual create something big. And through what they have and what I have to add, we can do something together as a collaborative partner and build something here. And so, because I saw something that I needed in my business that was lacking, and I saw she wasn't making any money with that. She was just telling people who they were at their core and in their DNA. And I'm like, she could create a membership out of this. And so I reached out to this person and I'm like, hey, can we have a conversation about how I could use what you have in my business and help other coaches and help you make money by helping me make money? And so that's kind of how a collaborative partnership really starts. And so we've worked together over the last few months. And yesterday, we basically finalized something that we can both get started with on making money. It's, and so that's just when you identify a talent, you and I have, how we work together, she and I have, but sometimes you just have to take the step and say, you have something that I need, and reach out and build that relationship with that individual I didn't just go jump on that girl. I built a relationship with her first. And then I said, we need to talk. You've got something that is brilliant here. And then that's how that whole process begins.
I think that is really important too, because I love the way you said narrow and broad, because I'm sure everybody that's listening has said, oh yeah, I did some collaborative thing and it was a nightmare, right? I mean, we all have had a nightmare collaboration, right? I think we have. I think part of that is not doing their due diligence first. They didn't build the relationship first. They were just thinking about the thing and how it could make money. So they didn't build the relationship and they jumped in maybe too soon, right? Because I have to tell you, I've had one or two of those myself over time.
Yes.
And every time I look back, I realize it's because I got so excited about the value that I knew I could bring. And
Absolutely.
I didn't really look at, wait a second, how does that look? Now, in your case, you saw that first because you've been through this a few times too, like me. But I think that is really important. I have a criteria strategy that I have in place when I am doing collaboration, and it now works for me really, really well. But I think a lot of times people can jump in too soon. And that's also something that people need to kind of watch. But because we did bring up human design, I'm sure that there are people who are listening who also know about human design. And while that really isn't the basis for the podcast, I know that they're going, well, Tonya, what are you? What are you? So go ahead. You told me about it when you first told me about it. I said, oh, well, I want to know what I am, mostly just because I heard people talk about it and I wanted to know. And we guessed at what I was. And of course, just like what you said, that was exactly, what I ended up being. So just because I know there are people who are listening that are thinking that question, what is yours? What are you in human design?
So I'm a mental projector. So basically what a mental projector is I guide people. I guide. It's just what we're talking about today. I'm a connector. I guide people. I'm a business strategist. I guide people along through their ideas. I help them. They come up with an idea and they don't know what to do with it. I guide them through their ideas, but also where I said I reached out to that person, that is not always the smartest thing for me to do. In my DNA, Patty, my DNA is, for my strategy through my DNA is that I should wait for the invitation to be asked. Because if I'm always voluntarily giving my advice, it's not taken well. It's taken as I'm a control freak. I'm aggressive. And so if I don't wait for the
Which you're not those things at all. Which you are not those things at all.
I'm not. I'm trying to add value to people. But if they're not in the spot to receive, it's taken the wrong way. So
I think that what you're saying right there is so interesting, because I know that in my role as a marketing and media strategist, sometimes people will just share in conversations with me. And because I live and breathe strategy and marketing strategy specifically, I'll want to share with them. And I have realized over time that they're not in a place to always want to receive that, even though I'm giving it to them for free. Right. Yeah. And I've had to learn to say, are you open to receive? And
absolutely.
And most of the time they're like, I think it's gives them a moment to shift, right? To shift. I don't want to hear you tell me what I should. Well, I never say what you should do anyway, but when I say, are you open to receive? I have an idea. Well, then they're like, oh, absolutely. Right. I'm not married to the idea. It's just a marketing idea. Right. So I think that is really true. You do have to really be careful. One of the things that I do think is interesting before we kind of move on from that is when I found out that I was a manifesting generator, which if you just listen to the words, it kind of does sort of self-explanatory, tell you what it is, right? But here's one of the things that I thought was the most interesting, and I haven't delved into it not nearly, like 1/10 of what you have done. But one of the things I did think was interesting is that both you and I, our human design is rare. is rare to have the ones that we have, which I kind of thought was kind of interesting, to know like, oh, well, I kind of thought that was interesting. But the one thing that I do want to say about this is I know this is what contributes to who you are and who you are not. Now, I have to tell you, who we are is important. And a lot of people who are listening are thinking, oh, I know who I am. A lot of self-discovery, personal growth. Over time, if you're a successful entrepreneur, I think you really don't become a successful entrepreneur without doing some inner work and personal business development. However, a lot of that is just to find out who we are. Like, oh, I need to know who I am at my core. I don't really know too many people who would say, you know what, I want to do some personal and business development growth so I can find out who I am not. Like, I've never heard anybody say that, right? You know what I mean? But through learning about this and having conversations with you, really understanding that who you are not is equally as important. It's sort of like when you're thinking strategy. I mean, to me, I always feel like, and it's one of the questions I always ask my podcast guests, like, what are some myths or what are some myths that people think that are just not true? And what are some things that we should not do? Because I feel like it's just as important to know what not to do as it is to know what to do. But I never thought about it in the realm of who you are and who you are not. So can you explain a little bit about how recognizing who you are not contributes to a stronger personal and professional identity?
I can. And actually, this came to me, Patty, in a phone call with one of my coaches last April. So we're going on a year ago that this work happened for me. And we've heard about this all of our life. So it's almost like it's really not a revelation, but it was a revelation, if that makes sense. And so I've been, and this is the way it came to me. So the way it came to me and then the way I'm going to explain it will make sense when I get finished here. As you know, the audience doesn't know, but as you know, I've been working on my weight, okay? I was overweight and I wanted to lose weight, but I was a yo-yo dieter. Couldn't get it off. But years ago, Patty, years ago, I was a toothpick. I was probably as skinny as my pinky, okay? People would say, "You're so skinny. You're so skinny. How do you eat all that and not get fat?" Okay? So I'm going to point out something. How do you not get fat? You eat all of that and you don't get fat. That's the first negative thing planted in my head, okay? The next thing. When women have babies, they gain weight. When I got pregnant, I automatically thought, I'm going to gain weight. Patty, I gained 50 pounds. I weighed 100 pounds when I got pregnant. I gained 50 pounds when I got pregnant. I was swollen, I was big, blah, 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 blah. That 50 pounds, Tonya, is going to be hard to come off. I couldn't get it off, Patty. Then in my early 30s, I had a hysterectomy. If you don't take hormones, you're not going to be able to get that weight off. Okay, there's lie number 3. When you turn 40, you start spreading, and it's even harder to get weight off. Do you see why I'm yo-yoing? I've believed all these lies in my head. Well, when I had this coach who was helping me with my weight, we weren't even talking about this, but I totally erupted the conversation and said, "Oh my God, I've got it." He's like, "What have you got?" I said, "I understand why I yo-yo diet. I have believed that I am fat. I have believed I can't get skinny. And I just mentally had an image of a woman who had a baby and she's skinny. A woman who had a hysterectomy and she's skinny. I am not a woman who had a hysterectomy and is fat. I am not that person. I am a confident entrepreneur who is beautiful, self-confident, skinny, can stand on any stage or virtual stage and look the way I want to look. I am not that person that I have believed I am. So I want to move from that, but it was that pivotal moment that changed things for me. My sister, I'm going to use people in my family. I could use a lot of people, but I'm going to use my family. My sister has always believed that she's had a learning disability. And I've been working with her. And I said, you do not have a learning disability. You've been told by a teacher you have a learning disability. You do not. And I've started saying, you need to visualize yourself as not having that. You need to tell yourself you do not, and you need to believe you do not. And you have tools like Grammarly and AI and other things that help you compensate for what people have told you that are a lie. And Patty, do you know the improvement is beyond amazing? My brother, who committed suicide 9 years ago, thought that he was not liked and well received in the community. If he would have seen how many people were at his funeral, he would have cried. He was very well liked. We believe, and again, I'm going to stick with me and my family, we believe what we've been taught. My granddaughter has been told by a certain individual, she's nicknamed a piece of SHIT and a demon, and we're constantly calling her princess. That's her nickname. You're a princess. You're a princess. You're a princess. Because we don't want her thinking the other words. You believe the lies of what people tell you you are and what you think you are. You are not that individual. So you are confident. You are self-worthy. You are these other things. And so, who you are is who you think you are, and what you've been told you are. If you believe those lies, that's who you become. And so it was an epiphany to me is, Tonya, you have to help people understand that this low self-worth they have, this low self-confidence they have, help them get to the root of why they believe those things about themselves, because they're lies. And if they can
limiting beliefs, they're like limiting beliefs that they believe. And I think people have them all the time. I mean, I remember one of my daughters telling me, Mom, I can't get good grades because my teacher says I'm a terrible test taker.
That's the teacher's thought.
That's right. I don't care what the teacher says. Why would you say that? Right. You know, but I also remember in my own weight journey that when I was sick and had to have many years ago, when I was sick and had to have chemotherapy and I had to take steroids for like a year, I gained like 80 pounds through that process. Once they finally found out what the problem was and they took care of the problem, I remember asking the doctor, okay, so now what do I need to do to gain this weight? I was always like 120 pounds. And the doctor's like, you're alive and you should be thankful that you're alive right now and don't worry about the weight. You're never going to be able to do that. You took steroids for a year. And I literally accepted that. And I said, oh, well, I guess I'm just going to be heavy, but I should be thankful that I'm alive, right? You know, and for years and years and years until, again, just like you, we kind of went through that process together of that's not true. Like we listen to what people say and we let it become our truth. And I think that is really, and I think women do it more than men, I will say. But I think that we just really need to understand that that's not true. Those are just other things that I actually know that when I was growing up, you know, I had some of those things with my mom too, some of the things that she would say, and that I thought to myself, wow, is that true? You know, I mean, I remember one particular time she said to me when I was telling her about some exciting new thing that I was going to do and how, you know, I was going to be a speaker and some of the things. And I remember her saying to me, Because you have to know that not everybody, and especially our parents and other people, they didn't grow up the same way we did. So they have different beliefs, and we need to understand. And I clearly remember her telling me once, Patty, when is enough going to be enough? Right? You know, do you need to do all those things? And I remember thinking, oh my goodness. And I remember even when I was a kid being called Chatty Patty, and my parents telling me, Patty, we'll give you $5 if you could be quiet for 30 minutes, of which I never got that $5, by the way. But what I got to say, though, is if now I think to myself, my mom had already passed away when I started speaking. And I remember one day in the car picking up my phone and wanting to call my mom and say, Mom, people are going to pay me to talk. You always wanted me to be quiet. And now they're going to pay me to talk. And then I realized, oh, wait, you know, my cell phone doesn't go to heaven. Well, I think she did hear me. But you know what I'm saying, though? And I think when you realize that, how many times does that hold you back? Like, how many times does it hold you back? And sometimes when somebody else believes in you and they hold space for you and you realize that you've allowed somebody else's truth to become your truth. Mm-hmm. And I feel like when we step up and say, no, that is not my truth. This is my truth. I'm going to use my voice and I'm going to speak my truth, because that's what sets us apart. I want to hire somebody, work with somebody, be friends with somebody, collaborate with somebody who understands their truth and the value that they bring. And if they don't think they can do it, well, how am I going to believe in them that they can do it? So I do feel like what you're saying is really true. It's not just knowing who you are, is learning who you are not. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those things really can get in the way. So I love that you are doing that. I love that that's just another value add that you are doing as well. So now let's kind of go a little bit forward in some of the other things that you have done too. So now we're building relationships. Now, after we're building relationships, we're knowing how to do introductions. We're knowing how to do referrals. We're knowing how to do partnerships. We're learning how to collaborate. We're doing all those things. And then there's also another strategy that you use, but I like the way that you do it. I like the way you do it kind of better than anybody else that I know, actually, because it comes and aligns with my serve, not sell, is that you do affiliate marketing differently. And I like the way that you do it. It's also the way that I do it now. For years and years, I said I wouldn't do affiliate marketing because I just thought it was so salesy and icky. I think affiliate marketing has come a long, long way, and there's so many people that are doing it right now. But I actually like your strategy about how you use affiliate marketing, because I actually think that it goes in with what we're talking about today. So, you know, it's a game changer. So from your experience, what are some of the keys that you have used, you know, relationships in your affiliate marketing?
So, you know, Patty, affiliate marketing to me is just as important as my business. And, you know, when I am using a tool or in a relationship, if I like that tool or that relationship, then I'm going to become an affiliate with that individual. And when I talk to people about affiliate marketing, I do affiliate marketing differently, as you mentioned. I'm not out there as an affiliate for hundreds of different companies. I am an affiliate for the people that I do business with, because I can wholeheartedly recommend those companies because I use them. I use them every day, or at least monthly. You know, it's something that I use in my business. So I feel confident saying, Patty, I have this tool that I use and this is how I use it. And I want to show it to you because you just mentioned something in your conversation, and I think that it could add value to your business or add value to you. And when we engage in that way, again, it goes back to building that relationship. And it just, affiliate marketing in that way fits so well. It's almost like I'm referring you to that business.
And I think that it's because you're serving, not selling. And I don't think people care that you may, I mean, it's not like you make so much money, right? But even if you did, it's not coming out of their pocket, right? It's not coming out of their pocket. But I think, the old days of affiliate marketing that were kind of clickbait-ish, like, where it was like, oh, yes, I'm doing this, this, and this. Okay, yeah, that did feel ucky, but because there was no relationship involved. Now, for years and years and years, I built my relationships with people, and I built my business actually endorsing what other people do. Oh, well, if you do this, I know somebody who does this, and this is something that you could do. I do say that I love being affiliates of tools and of software and those type of things, and of the people that I have built relationships with, because I am able to tell them how it can help them, right?
Absolutely.
Because I'm doing that, right? And I think that as long as we disclose, right, I think that feels really, really good. So I love the way that you're doing it. But I think that also when we were on this cruise together, so not only have we roomed at conferences, at podcasts, and we've been out of the country together and all these things too. But I remember when we went on the podcast cruise, we literally went to the things. And then when everybody else was at the bar and at the pool and all those other things, you and I were on the patio in our upgraded room so that we could literally talk strategy. And that's where we were. And a lot of that was about what we wanted to do with our podcast, right? And so I know that for both of us, this is the year of really up-leveling that. I'll have an announcement about that soon, but it won't be today. But about that, which I think is really exciting. But as a podcast host yourself, how have you found that platform has helped you in reinforcing your business philosophies and expanding your network?
I have found it for me for reach. Expanding my reach, my territory, helping the individuals that come on to my podcast as a guest. It's getting them. Again, I love giving value, and it's helped me get my guest more visibility, more influence. It's gotten me more connections. It's, when you have the ability to bring someone on, regardless of what type of podcast it is, and you share that on social, and you tag the individual, it puts you in front of their network as well. It puts them in front of your network. And again, I'm all about helping other people build connections and referrals. It is unbelievable, Patty. I always say this: you're one connection away from your next big check. You don't know whether it's your close network or your extended network that's going to get you that one connection. Absolutely. And so my podcast has put me in front of and connected me to big influencers and micro influencers. And, I fought tooth and nail when my team back early on wanted me to do a podcast. I said, I'm not a podcaster. I'm not a speaker. I was scared to death, honestly, of going out on video. But what I realized, Patty, this week, this is only Wednesday. What I realized this week in looking at the views, and I don't have a big podcast, but looking at the YouTube shorts, my mouth dropped. And so for me, what I realized for my podcast is the reach. The people that you are reaching, that you can bring into your ecosystem, again, that gets you one step closer.
Absolutely.
One step closer. And it showed me the value of putting yourself out there, regardless whether you feel confident or you've got the weebie-jeebies. Just keep doing what you're doing, because the reach is growing and the influence is growing.
I remember back in the day, not to say blogs still aren't, good. I'm not saying that. But back in the day when that was the big thing, right? Before whatever, like everything was about blogging, right? Yes, blogging. I remember back then somebody said to me once, just do it. Your first 50 are going to suck, but it doesn't matter. You'll get better. And I think the same thing applies to podcasts too. And somebody said something to me one time that really helped me when I decided to transition from audio podcasts, of which I've done hundreds of, over to doing video. And they said, Patty, just because you record doesn't mean you have to publish, right? If you don't like it, just do it. And then,
Amen.
Oh, that's not good. Just do it again. You don't have to publish it. So just do it. And that really was freeing for me, right? It was really freeing. And so I think that sometimes if there's something that is holding you back, because we know that sometimes people aren't speakers, right? But I have to tell you, if there's anything we've learned since 2020 is that we all talk on Zoom now, right? We're all talking like you can do it, right? You can do it, right? So I think that is really good. But then there's all about rating. And speaking of blogging, that is the whole reason that I now publish a magazine. 6 years ago, I told myself, I don't want to blog. And it wasn't that I didn't like to blog. I just didn't want to do it consistently. And everybody's like, oh, you got to do it consistently. You got to blog every week or whatever. And I just didn't want to do it. I didn't feel like I could churn out content on a dime, really, because we weren't really into micro content then, right? It was all those long, robust, with a million links and, everything was super long. Not now where everybody just wants it quick. And I thought, oh, I just don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. So I thought, oh, what could I do? Oh, I think I'll publish a magazine instead. Then I don't have to provide all the content and I can do it quarterly. Now, I have to tell you, what I want the audience to hear from that is if there is something that you don't want to do in your business, then don't do it. Like, you don't have to do it, right? People were like, oh, you have to do this, Patty. Oh, you're a speaker, Patty. Well, you need to have a speaker reel. I mean, it was years and years and years that I was making literally 7 figures as a speaker, and I still didn't have one. So again, this goes back to what other people tell you and what we choose to believe, right?
That's right.
So then I had the magazine. So of course, you and I collaborate on pretty much everything. We're our first choice, which actually goes back to when we were building the communities. We're not in the same communities now, but that's really great because we're the first person we'd like to introduce to everybody else when it's appropriate, right? So that's kind of good sometimes to divide and conquer, as we like to call it. But when I came to you and I said, I would really like you to write for my magazine because yes, you have a podcast and yes, I can have you do a Facebook Live and I can have you come and speak for me and I can have you do all those things. But I would really like it if you'd continually write for the magazine. And I invited you to do that. And this is like your second year with us that you have been a writer for the magazine. So you have a podcast, you are a speaker, you are a community builder and a relationship builder. Like, how has adding like that as just another thing, right? Because there are a lot of magazines out there. There are blogs, so if the audience is listening, it's not like I have the only magazine. There's a lot of them. How are you incorporating that into your strategy?
Patty, first of all, I want to back up and say, when you talk about, we're in different communities, remember we did that strategically so that we could introduce each other to, influencers and other people. And then to go into the magazine, I never thought 40 years ago, number one, that I would be writing for a magazine, nor would I have a podcast, or I would even be doing what I'm doing today. Was it a dream? I think that was back in the back of my mind, but I never had the confidence I could do it. To be able to write for your magazine, it's an honor to be able to do it. And it's, to incorporate that, number one, I think, again, it goes back to the exposure. Not only the exposure for me, but the exposure for you and the other columnist, that we share value together and we're all helping each other bring awareness to each other. We're all helping you grow, the readers, the contact list for the magazine. But quarter after quarter, we're all sharpening our skills for writing. I would say that my articles today, just like podcasting, my articles today are better than my very first article that I wrote. My lead magnet today, or my promo, not lead magnet, my promo is better today than my very first one was. And so, the more you do things, the better that you get. But everything that you do, every strategy that you add to your business allows you the ability to get more exposure as far as visibility. It grows your influence and it helps each other. You're helping me by getting that exposure. I'm helping you by growing your audience. And it's a collaborative partnership in order to help each other.
And I love having you be part of my community. So I love that. So thank you so much. So Tonya, looking forward, let's look forward. Do you have a project that you're excited about?
I have several projects that I'm excited about, but I would say probably the biggest one is building out my own personal community. I've got the community within Alignable, but I'm wanting to build my own personal community. And so that's probably my biggest project. And there's lots of things underneath that umbrella that are too soon to talk about, but that's my biggest project and nearest upcoming
So for project. You in the audience, that means that you have to contact her and connect with her, and then you'll get to hear. So, and you should do that, because that would just be really, really smart for you to do that. But so before we get ready to wrap, what is the best way for people to connect with you? And what's the name of your podcast, and where can they find it?
So the name of my podcast is Influence and Growth Mastery. It's out on all of the podcast streaming channels. And then it's also on YouTube. And again, it's under Influence and Growth Mastery. But I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook. I have Facebook personal profile, a business profile, Facebook group. Those are both under Influence and Growth Mastery. I'm on Alignable. I'm on Instagram. I just started TikTok. I only have 3 videos, but yeah, they can pretty much find me anywhere, Patty.
Well, that's really good to know, right? So thank you so much. So one of the things, when I call this the hashtag open mic portion of the show, where you already given us so much value, and I appreciate you so much. But if you had to narrow it down to, with all of those strategies, if you had to narrow it down to one marketing, media, money strategy, what would it be?
Oh gosh, it's create passive income, become an affiliate marketer, add that to your business strategy. You need more than one income. And in my opinion, affiliate marketing is the best way to do it. I mean, if Facebook were to shut down today, what would we do? And so if you've built up a good affiliate marketing strategy, you should be doing okay. You would still have income coming in. And so that would be my best strategy to give.
That is awesome. And that's really a great strategy. So to my audience, I'm going to encourage you. She just told you she was pretty much everywhere, right? You can always really tap into the magazine. Literally for 2 years now, she's been giving so much value, and she gives something away every single time too. So it's a really great way to get some amazing gifts that she has and tap into that. So thank you so much, Tonya, for being here with me today. I appreciate it. To my audience, thank you so much for spending time with us today. And if you enjoyed the experience and you loved this episode, and I'm sure you did, please take a moment to like and review this podcast. And until next week, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us today on the Marketing, Media, and Money podcast. To shorten your learning curve even more, make sure to grab your free copy of the Marketing, Media, and Money magazine at m3magazine.com. That's M3magazine.com. I promise your business will thank you.